I don't want... Well, we've got a blank board. Let's see if we can find it. I'm not used to doing it through. I used to do it on myself doing the presentation, not through.
That's fine. It will be there. Where you found it.
Gotta find it.
Where the file is.
Where the file is, yeah. It doesn't. I have to find the files. Can anybody advise me?
I can't see what you're looking for, so I don't know.
If it's not there, then you can look at it as pictures, or you can just read it through.
No, well, I could read it through. I do prefer to get it on because it's relevant to. I can't get into for some reason, I can't get into my document, my files. Text, no. No, can anybody any idea?
Okay.
How I get into this?
I can't see what you're.
No, I can't see what you're doing. So if that's not going to be possible, then you just talk through it. Sometimes it just doesn't work when you want it to work. So
it says,
it's a shame because it is a detailed. I mean, it's 29 slides there.
That's fine. You can send it to everyone.
I think you have the old one I sent you, Jay.
Yes, you did.
Do you want to put that one up?
You can start while I look, see if I can find anything there. So just go ahead.
Just bear with me. I think I'll just try one more thing before if we're sharing. Just see if I can get it on. I've got an idea.
Is this specifically geared at gambling only?
Yes.
Okay.
Are you seeing that?
No.
You've not got that. Okay.
Have you put share screen on it?
Yes, I have. I'll try again. Right.
Because of share screen, and then you click on whatever it is that you need to do.
Yeah, I just did that, and you didn't see it for some reason. So
let me just try share. No. Mine just scheduling made easy. That's all it does on mine.
Yeah.
So I've got to try and get back into the.
Yeah, if you can come out of that, Alex.
I'm trying to.
Just bear with
How
me.
do I come out of it?
What I could do, Carl, is take shots of some of the slides that you have and put them up one by one, and if that makes it any easier, so that we've got something to interact with.
I've got to come out and come back in again, I think.
This is just wait for Alex to come off, and I'll just try again now. Are you seeing that on shared screen?
No.
Right, I've actually got it up, but it's not come on. That's a bit of a pain, that. Okay, well, I'll crack on without. If you could just put up what you've got. I mean,
can you see that? Can you see that? Anyone?
Yes.
Okay. Right. So that is a picture that we have, the first slide, as it were.
Yeah, this is
the old one.
Yeah, the old stuff that I actually did, which doesn't flow. But anyway, I shall read it as I go through it. Bear with me, and we'll have to try and sort this out at a later date. So let me kick off. Just as I said at the very beginning, I wrote this on the basis that people would be watching it it won't be relevant. So for those people who don't know me, my name's Carl Montlake. I've been an addict of life for nearly 70 years, of which the last 13 years I've found myself working in Moss Side with drug families, underprivileged families, and people with alcoholic addiction and serious compulsive gamblers, along with visiting and working with offenders in custody. Be of no doubt that gambling addiction is a very difficult issue, and there are no quick fixes to this problem. Today, with the JC Foundation, we are trying to support the change that this lifetime occupation of addictive gamblers. To do this, we first need to understand this need and why they have taken the road to becoming an addictive gambler. Having this understanding, we're able to support and signpost them to professional agencies and support workers who can offer the required support and treatment that hopefully will improve their quality of life and help them take the steps towards a non-addictive lifestyle. There is help out there. Once we have identified the addictive gambler, you will be in a position to improve their lives and in certain cases, save them from suicide. For you to get the full flavour and understanding to the background of this problematic and often challenging subject, I will need to run through this coherent and comprehensive course. Please don't be embarrassed to stop me at any time and ask any questions that are on your mind. As much as we want to, and as hard as it is seeing the effects of gambling, we cannot make somebody stop. However, we can encourage them to seek help, support them in their efforts and protect you from them, and take any talk of their suicide extremely seriously. As you are aware, it's a fact that a compulsive and problem gambler will always need the support of their family and friends to help them in their struggle to stop this addiction of gambling. Remember, the decision to quit has to be first and foremost theirs. The JC Foundation's role is not for us to become therapists, doctors, or even practitioners, but to help where we're able to identify a real issue, which will be referring to one of the specialist organizations that I have listed below. The information I am giving you today is for you to have some background to this problem of addictive gambling, and in many cases, how first to consider dealing with it. So first and foremost, let's look how an addictive gambler can understand their own illness. Gambling addiction is sometimes referred to as a hidden illness because there are no obvious or physical signs or symptoms like they are in drug or alcohol addiction. Problem gamblers will typically deny or minimize that they have a problem, even to themselves. It's important that we understand that addiction not only includes becoming dependent upon drugs or alcohol, but also covers addictive gambling and other behavioral addiction. People think that with addiction, the removal of the product will be the solution. But as we will see, these complex disorders and obsessions and compulsions are extremely hard to beat. We know that a gambling addict will find it difficult to control their urge. to gamble, even if they realize the destructive and damaging ramifications. In time, like all addictions, the sense of satisfaction from gambling becomes more demanding, and the addict begins to risk more and more. As with drug and alcohol addiction, the gambler will experience withdrawal symptoms, often relapsing and lose control, especially the deeper they become dependent. Modern technology has made gambling more accessible, and it is now very easy to use a smartphone or tablet at any time of the day or night to get a gambling fix. The consequences of a gambling addiction are devastating, and any addiction is a mental and chronic illness. The urge to gamble becomes the most important thing for any addict. Real life takes a back seat. As the need to gamble becomes stronger and uncontrollable for many, life becomes unmanageable, which leads to relationship breakdown, lies, money worries, debt, and the loss of their job. Home and family statistics show that 1 in 5 compulsive gamblers try to kill themselves, and gambler suicide rates are higher than other type of addicts. The reason? Addiction changes the chemicals in the brain, which alters judgment, decision-making, and mood. Gambling stimulates the pleasure and reward system, releasing dopamine that provides a wave of satisfaction. This motivates us to do the action again, so we can enjoy the pleasant feeling more and more. This is more noticeable regarding sex. So let's talk about the various types of gamblers. It's not that straightforward. There are generally around 6 types of known gamblers. There's a professional gambler, who really is a rarity, who gambles professionally, may make a living by gambling somehow, and they have learned to confront the systems built around them, where taking money often comes out ahead.
Come on, I'm eating.
Being a professional gambler takes an extraordinary level of patience, frustration tolerance, intelligence, and self-control. We can see successful professional gamblers continually weigh the odds of each situation to decide how to proceed. Impulsively and anger don't stand in the way of their performance, so professionals often dismiss these traits. These people do not consider themselves to be addictive. The next is a casual social gamblers. A casual social gambler is much more common, as you may not realize, than a professional player. A casual gambler may stop in a casino from time to time, spending a moderate amount of money on slots or blackjack, and then head home at the end of the night. They might also join friends for a fantasy football league or Friday night poker game, especially if you're not from. For all the casual social gamblers, the act is not without the strong desire to win. This type of gambler is interesting in spending time with friends, meeting new people, and engaging in some sort of rest and relaxation to relieve stress. The casual social gambler is comparable to a social drinker. A social drinker may head to the bar after work some days, but the experience is more about socializing with similar people. For the reasons to de-stress, alcohol or gambling, in this case, it's not their primary focus. The next on this list is a real problem, is a serious social gambler. Gambling can be either a positive or a negative coping skill. The casual gambler uses gambling as one of their various available outlets, but the serious social gambler relies solely on gambling to cope. While negative coping skills seem useful in the moment, they only lead to problems in the future. With long hours spent gambling to cope with stress, serious social gamblers may begin sliding towards problematic gambling, while struggling to maintain family obligations, work, and close friendship. Antisocial personality gamblers are more likely to illegally fix bets, and they are occupied with the illegal side of gambling. Casual social gamblers, serious social gamblers, relief and escape gamblers, compulsive pathological gamblers. The list goes on. The National Institute of Drug Abuse reports say that addictions commonly form when people engage in behaviors like using drugs or gambling to fulfill an emotional need. Relief and escape gamblers may only seek out gambling as a way to manage their depression, anxiety, or other causes of stress. Escape gamblers may be pretty unsuccessful at winning, though due to their emotional state, their decision-making and judgment can be poor. Relief and escape gamblers may lose huge amounts of money in a short amount of time and feel high stress, anxiety, and depression, especially in the long term. Relief and escape gamblers benefit from expanded coping skills to address these emotional needs. Then we come on to the conservative gambler. Rather than seeking the thrill of winning or the social aspects of gambling, conservative gamblers are interested in the experience. They want to try playing slots or rolling the dice because they've seen these type of games on televisions or in movies and are often extremely curious. Conservative gamblers likely place a modest budget on time limit on their gambling and invariably stick to it whether they win or lose. This practice makes them problematic or addictive gamblers very rare amongst conservative gamblers. Next is the personality gambler. For better or worse, these gambler types involve activity that is legal, even if it becomes problematic. The personality gamblers, sometimes called antisocial gamblers, are different because they behave in illegal ways. These gamblers want to make large amounts of money gambling by any means necessary. Personality gamblers may lie, cheat, steal, and deceive other players or people in charge to come out. Their tactic is simply like hiding a card up their sleeve or elaborate like offsprings to fix a race or sporting event. For the personality gambler, gambling is an issue. There could be other facets of their criminal activity and mental health that needs equal attention from professionals. And then we have the compulsive gambler. Their lives lead entirely controlled by gambling and money, even though they might not want to admit it. They frequently display signs of a gambling disorder, like spending too much time gambling, make unsuccessful attempts to cut back, stop gambling, continuing to gamble despite issues with relationship, work, school, or home life caused by gambling, constantly chasing the next win to compensate for their last loss. Compulsive gamblers typically need professional treatment and support from their loved one to avoid worsening life circumstances. Compulsory gambling can quickly consume a person's life. So what are the telltale signs? You won't simply stop. They don't simply stop themselves. Simply put, people who gamble for fun limit themselves, limit their bets, and know when to stop. Compulsive gamblers, on the other hand, often struggle with both the time they spend on gambling and also the money in time betting, whether in a casino or online. It takes over their life, And when they try to quit, it's too late, they can't. They take money they can't afford and gamble with it. Many people put aside fun money to gamble with, either online or in casinos. Problem gamblers, on the other hand, use money that is needed for paying bills and buying food, and even sometimes bet money they borrowed from friends and family. Their betting is no longer entertainment or recreation. While recreational gamblers play for fun and spend only a few dollars, someone with a gambling problem will often gamble to either escape from their anxiety or other problems that they have. In order to get back their gambling losses, they gamble more. They lost money by gambling and then bet more in order to get it back. You probably have a gambling problem. This is what's known as throwing good money after bad, and problem gamblers do it all the time. They find themselves using more and more money to gamble. Many addictions start small. Alcoholics become alcoholics overnight, and gamblers don't become addicted to gambling overnight either. Problem gamblers do, however, have a problem playing for low stakes or staying within set limits.
I know you can't do it.
They need to feel the rush and to get it, and they need to get betting more and more money. I just need to tell you a story, a true story that happened to me. About 40 years ago, I was working for a company, and we'd been up to Carlisle and had been selling merchandise, and the owner had just picked up a large bundle of cash. But he was an addictive gambler. And he said to me, whatever you do, when we go to the casino, I want you to hold this bag with this money. But don't give it me on any circumstance because it's the deposit for my house. Anyway, needless to say, we trottled into this casino in Manchester. And he started gambling. And as the evening went on, he started to chase the losses more and more. And his eyes become glazed. They were like saucers. And you could see by looking at it, he'd become uncontrollable. And he turned to me and he said, give me the bag of money. And I said, no, you've told me not to do it. And near us, within the casino, was a restaurant. And he walked over to this table, picked up a knife off the table and put it to my throat. And he said, give me the bag of money, which I subsequently did, and walked out the casino and never spoke to him again. And this is someone within the Jewish community there. So let's carry on. In order to get more money to gamble, gamblers will do extreme things. Gambling addicts don't stop gambling where their bank account is empty, but instead do things like borrow money, steal money, or resort to forgery in order to feed their habit. Gambling becomes the most important thing in their life. If you've ever missed your child's birthday party, called out sick to work, or missed a family function in order to gamble, chances are you've got a serious problem. And if you find your relationship is deteriorating or your career is going down the drain, it's time to get some serious house. Also, your emotions are becoming erratic. When you're becoming more frustrated and irritated about your gambling, if you had feelings or remorse or seen ambition slowly drop, you know you've got a serious gambling addiction problem. A few of the signs that could indicate, there's a slide regarding this, could indicate is a student having a problem with their gambling, or frequent class absences, a lot of cash flow or no cash flow, unexplained debt, an overall decline in health and withdrawal, mood changes, and behavior problems. As mentioned, these type of clients do not see themselves any more of these situations. Above, it might be time to them to surf the Gamblers Anonymous website and take a test that I have there about compulsive gamblers. If they fail, it may be time to get some serious help. So what is problem gambling? The term problem gambling describes gambling behavior that has become destructive or damaging to the gambler or to those around them. Problem gambling can make each day a struggle. The gambler now has a craving or behavior to chase losses, makes even replace the craving for the initial sensation that drove someone to gamble more. This behavior can then have a harmful consequence as money is needed to feed this addiction. Problem gamblers may feel the urge to continue gambling, even when doing so will likely result in a negative consequence. Money problems, work problems, mental health issues, and relationships are common signs of problem gambling. Problem gambling may have desired to stop gambling, but as we've already said, may be unable to do so. It's a common misconception that problem gamblers simply lack the willpower to stop. For problem gamblers, quitting gamblers is not simply about trying to quit. The question begs, the people we're dealing with, are they a problem gambler? Compulsive gambling, also called gambling disorder, is the uncontrollable urge to keep gambling despite the toll it takes on someone's life. Gambling means that they're willing to risk something that they value in the hope of getting something of even greater value. Let's remember that, as we've already identified, gambling can stimulate the brain's reward system, much like drugs or alcohol. And if they have a problem with compulsive gambling, they may continually chase bets that lead to losses, hide their behavior, deplete savings, accumulate debt, or even resort to theft or fraud to support their gambling. They need professional treatment. Why do some people become addictive? Because taking risks is part of human nature. Whether it is gambling on a slot machine or riding a skateboard, every day we engage in activities offering both a potential risk and a potential reward. As human beings, we are motivated to take this risk by the release of this dopamine, this feel-good chemical that has the same pleasurable rewards in our brain as eating our favorite food. Without risk-taking, human civilization may not have moved forward. It leads to entrepreneurship, innovation, enhanced creativity, but problems can arise when an increased desire to take risks can cause serious harm. Like alcoholism and drug dependency, gambling can become an addiction when the compulsion to gamble can no longer be controlled by the individual and they become reckless. These types of compulsions generally stem from two different pathways in the brain. These pathways are often referred to as the liking pathways, and the wanting pathways in layman's terms. Liking is spontaneous, whereas wanting is a more profound idea. So what type of person is more likely to have an addiction? A gambling addiction or compulsive gambling is an addictive disorder referring to the compulsion of a bet and is recognized such by the World Health Organization. We've seen it can be extremely debilitating disorder if it is not dealt with quickly and responsibly. In Sweden, the focus is on preventing problems betting before it occurs. To do this, They have understood the types of people are more likely to develop what type of addiction. A recent study has shown that the following individuals are more at risk of compulsive gambling: men, those who are unemployed, individuals between the ages of 25 to 34, and people with a history of mental health issues. So we've already said that gambling often takes over healthy habits. The time that a gambler used to spend on other hobbies like exercising or learning a new skill becomes solely dedicated to gambling. They might justify this to you by saying my free time is for me to do whatever I enjoy. While this may be true, it's worrying when they can no longer have time for any other hobbies that help them to grow and stay healthy. It's true that addicts refuse to function like normal human beings. The difference in behavior comparing an addict to someone who isn't addicted is actually quite shocking. Gambling addicts often neglect their basic responsibilities on the hunt for their next rush of adrenaline. Addicts start to slack off at work, neglect spending time with loved ones, and will find it difficult to talk about anything that's not related to their habit. Let's remember that often addiction it puts illicit chemical changes in the brain. There are plenty of reports out there, and they all seem to focus on the same points, that these chemical changes that occur in the brain or drug or alcohol addicts are very difficult to remove. This adrenaline rush puts it at the forefront of their mind. We have seen that gambling is a destructive habit that can't be overcome without professional help, thanks to these chemical changes in the brain. The sooner we get an addict to admit they need help, the easier it'll be for them to fully recover. Not only does it causes personal problems, gambling, but it also causes chronic depression, as well as financial problems and interpersonal problems. Compulsive gambling desires affect regular neurological functions in the brain. And gambling is always on the mind of the addict. They find it difficult to concentrate on any other tasks. Their brains will find it difficult to function without getting that gambling fix in a day, and find it difficult to do anything without that fix. The big problem with this is it worsens the more they chase and the more success they have with their gambling. Failure can sometimes deter people from continuing to gamble, but once somebody wins while they are gambling, they often become hooked for life. No matter how many times they lose after that, they continue to gamble because they believe that one day they will win again. Unfortunately, it's extremely rare for anybody to win, otherwise casinos wouldn't be in business. The small hope of winning can be all it takes to make an addiction possible. These neurochemical alterations increase, so the scientists say, with proportion to the amount of addiction that these people find themselves. The longer they gamble, the more difficult it is for them to stop. It holds true of any behavior for any extended time. It becomes so automatic and easy that many addicts find themselves gambling online when they really just meant to check their emails. The reprogramming in the brain becomes nearly impossible to beat when they train their mind to gamble. Prolonged addiction instills erratic tendency in behavior. They don't think like normal people. Temporary dormant addictions result in serious relapses. Gambling addicts often train their mind to respond positively to gambling. Therefore, for someone who's trying to quit, their minds will be screaming at them to continue gambling. That rush that addicts feel from gambling isn't just metaphysical, it's a real chemical rush thanks to the chemicals we've discussed. That's why it's so common for recovering addicts to relapse back in their addiction. One of the major issues as well is that gambling addicts tend to find that they become compulsive liars. Even if they don't know it, consciously, subconsciously, most addicts know that their gambling addiction is something that they need to hide in order to prevent someone from taking this rush away from them. They will often lie as they were when they're gambling. They will also lie to anybody about how much money that they've actually lost. A severely affective addict finds normal social situations strange. Their whole lives become consumed by the gambling. Excessive addictive fueling leads to them becoming some sort of sociopath. The more a person indulges their addiction, the less they care about other things. This leads them starting to display sociopathic traits. They won't feel remorse for robbing a friend and family, for making friends and family worry, etc. As long as they fuel their addiction, the harder it will be for them to realize just how much they're hurting others with their behavior. Empathetic tendencies are reduced by this addiction. This goes along with their sociopathic tendencies. Addicts are masters at rationalizing even the most abhorrent actions. As we said, they don't feel empathy for stealing from others to fuel their addiction, nor will they feel empathy for taking advantage of the people who try to help them. Addicts are often disconnected from close relationships. Close relationships are the ones who most likely step in and help gambling addicts when they first start displaying worrying signs. But familiar love can only go so far. It's likely that many close relationships choose to cut ties with an addict if they don't display any kind of desire to stop gambling. It's also common for them to cut ties because gambling addicts are prone to robbing those close to them in order to get their money they need to fuel their addiction. Strangely enough, gambling addicts often move into substance abuse. It makes it more likely for them to take adverse substances. Because once you become addicted to one thing, they quite often become addicted to others. Gambling addicts often turn to substance abuse when they become depressed with their losses. Gambling is often entwined with substance abuse since many people gamble recklessly when they are drunk or high. It's not uncommon for gambling addicts to pass away due to alcohol poisoning or other overdose of drugs. Sometimes gambling addiction develops as the initial substance abuse from problem. The addiction enforces thievery from close friends and family. The neurochemical activity permanently damages social adjustment if it's left ignored. The longer a person is addicted to gambling, the more difficult it will be for them to eventually integrate back into life. Gambling potentially takes over an addict's life. Everything outside their addiction will fall away and become irrelevant. So let's look at mental health now, because it's a real issue with gamblers and other addicts. If a gambler finds he's got a serious problem, they often fall into a low esteem, stress, and depression. When gambling becomes an addiction, just like drugs or alcohol, when gambling is compulsory or a gambler feels out of control, the gambler is known to affect the brain and releases this dopamine, which in turn feels the hormone that creates feeling or pleasure and reward. Without it, the gambler will gamble harder to get the same buzz. There is also a strong link between gambling problems and thoughts of suicide. The potential risk factors associated with gambling are broad, including harms to individual, friends and family, society. And we need to better understand the nature of these issues. These risk factors contribute to the development of gambling problems or make it more difficult for them to stop. So the biggest stop to our clients to overcome a gambling addiction is first to realize that they have a problem. From years of experience, I can tell you it takes tremendous strength and courage to own up to an addiction, especially if they've lost a lot of money and strained or broken relationships along the way. Don't let them despair. Don't let them try to go it alone. We're here to signpost them and support them. It may be comforting for them to know that many others have been in their shoes and have been able to break the habit and rebuild their life. They can too. Learning for them to relieve unpleasant feelings in healthier ways. Do they gamble when they're lonely or bored, or having a stressful day? We need to strengthen their support network. It's tough for anyone to battle any addiction without support, so they need to reach out to friends and family. If their support network is limited, there are ways to make new friends without relying on visiting casinos or gambling online. Try to get them to reach out to colleagues at work, join a sports team or book club, enroll in education class, or volunteering for a good cause. Ask them to join a peer support group. Gamblers Anonymous, for example, is a 12-step recovery program patterned after Alcoholics Anonymous. A key part of the program is finding a sponsor, a former gambler who has experienced remaining free from addiction and can provide them with invaluable guidance and support. Get them to seek help from underlying mood disorders. Depression, stress, substance abuse, and anxiety can both trigger, again, their gambling problems and make matters worse by further compulsive gambling. Even when gambling is no longer part of their life, these problems will still remain. So it's important for us to try to point them in the direction to get them addressed. How would a gambler actually stop gambling for good? For many problems, it's not about quitting. Gambling, that's the biggest challenge. But rather staying in recovery, making a permanent commitment to stay away from gambling. The internet has made gambling far more accessible and therefore harder for recovering addicts to avoid relapse. Online casinos and bookmakers are open all day, every day for anyone with a smartphone or access to a computer. But maintaining recovery from gambling addiction or problem gambling is still possible if they surround themselves with people with whom they are accountable, can avoid themselves from tempting environments, website, give up control to their finances, or at least at first, and find healthy activities to replace their gambling lives. One way to stop gambling is to remove the element necessary for gambling to occur in one's life and replace them with a healthier choice. There are generally 4 elements needed for gamblers. A decision. For gamblers, to stop gambling, they need to make the decision whether they're going to continue gambling. If a gambler has the urge, stop them or get their family to stop them from what they're doing and call someone. They have to think about the consequences of their action. They need to be told to stop thinking about gambling and find something else for them to do immediately. Money, let's face it, gambling cannot occur without money. If they're serious and they really want to change, tell them to get rid of their credit cards, rip them up. Tell them to let someone else be in charge of their finances. Close betting accounts and make sure they are aware only to have limited cash on them. Time. Even online gamblers cannot occur if they don't have the time. Try to get them to schedule enjoyable recreational time for themselves that has nothing to do with gambling. If they're gambling on their smartphone, try to find other ways to fill their quiet moments during the day. Without a game or activity to bet on, there'll be no opportunity to gamble. So we've said that we're maintaining recovery from gamblers. Addiction depends on a lot of finding alternative behaviors that we can offer as substitutes for their gambling. Try to avoid isolation, postpone gambling, visualize in their minds what will happen if they don't control the urge to gamble. Distract them with other activities. We know they're going to be relapses, right? If they aren't able to resist gambling craving, don't be too hard on them or use it as an excuse to give up overcoming a gambling addiction, as this is a very extreme, tough process. They may slip from time to time. The important thing is for them to learn from their mistakes and continue working towards recovery. There's lots of treatment out there. Tell them the truth. Overcoming a gambling problem is never easy. And seeking professional treatment doesn't mean that they are weak in some way or can't handle the problems. It's important for us to remember that every gambler is unique, so they will need a recovery program tailored specifically to their needs and situation to get them to talk to their doctor or mental health professional about different treatments. Inpatients or residential treatments or rehab programs. You will notice on the slide there's a whole section regarding help for gambling and where to go, who to see, who to talk to, phone numbers, support groups, etc. One of the big areas that a lot of gamblers turn to is cognitive behavior therapy, or CBT. And this tends to focus on changing healthy gambling behaviors and thoughts, such as rationalization and false beliefs. It can also teach them how to fight gambling urges and solve financial work relationship problems caused by gambling. Therapy may also provide them with tools for coping with an addiction that really may last a whole lifetime. Pathological gambling. It's when a gambler goes from relaxing and recreation activity, from harmless fun to the most severe form of gambling, and today is recognised as a mental health disorder. It's actually classed as an impulse control disorder, but shares many features with substance use disorders. It's actually in a class of its own, which the doctors call addiction and related disorders. There's also help on the slides teaching you about where people can get financial assistance to support them during their addiction and healthcare support. The DHS have got a special hotline set up. The NHS has got a hotline set up. So people have to realise that they're not alone. There is help out there. And please take these numbers down and pass them on to the required party. I hope you found that useful there. Do remember, if you have any questions, I'm here to answer them to the best of my ability now. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that, Carl. That was really informative and illuminating and really comprehensive in terms of talking about all the different aspects of this particular issue that we're trying to grapple with. It is still, as you have said already, it is still very much a taboo subject that many people prefer to brush under the carpet, but it's there. And we're really concerned mainly about our youth and, who are there. Sometimes we don't know what they're up to. And the gaming industry is very good at creating ways and means by which people are hooked. And we're talking about, various addictions to online games and so on and so forth that falls under that heading. But thank you for sharing your thoughts with us and equipping our community of angels better to be able to tackle this issue. Now I'll hand over to, if there are any questions, please go ahead. Yeah.
Hi. Sorry, there is something that's coming up, and maybe it's gambling or what, and these are these challenges that young people are put in. Situations, and I think about that awful Netflix, is it Squid, whatever it's called, Squid, right? And it's the initial induction to that is where they flip over a card, right? It's a challenge for people, and it can be addiction, it can be gambling, but I've heard, and this happened in certain area, a group of kids who literally were challenging each other to get the cards right. And if they didn't get it right, then there was a slap across the face, right? That to me is an addiction, or whatever you want to call it, because they were challenging each other. It may not involve money, but it was a challenge to people to try and get it right. And that to me is another form of addiction. It can be gambling, it can be whatever it's called, but it has to be stopped anyway. I think it is being stopped.
I just make a point here, Susan. I don't know how many in the room here have got children or grandchildren, but I know the first thing that my grandchildren do when they walk in back from school is they turn their computers on and they sit online and they play for hours and hours. Yeah. And trying to get them out the front door for a day outing or a family meeting or anything, and they are continue playing, and this really has the same effects as gambling. This dopamine in the brain is making them addictive to this, and I have discussed this at length with my son and daughter-in-law about it. I just feel it's where it will lead. It's like a starter for 10, that the next thing up the ladder, maybe drugs, it may be anything. It is an addiction. Sorry, Alex.
Sorry. I think the lockdown has actually made it even worse.
I agree.
Because they've not had that interaction at school, right? So the only way they can have that interaction doing challenges or whatever is on these things or a tablet or something like that. And
that is the problem, though, because of lockdown. That was the only way for children to continue to maintain relationships. But there's a very simple solution, which we have in this house. If they won't get off it, you just turn the Wi-Fi button off.
Yeah, we do that. We've done that as well.
We have timeout on the iPad. I put the timer on, it turns them all off. And if they still don't listen, there's a plug at the wall and it turns it off. And I think it's also down to parents to monitor what their children are doing. My children can't access several sites because there's an age restriction on there. So anything that's over 12, they can't actually access. And I think it's also a lot of parents need to take responsibility. And we've had this conversation on class WhatsApp groups as well of what children are watching. And we actually share information if somebody's gone onto a site and say, I've just found out my child's been on this with your child, and we know we can block it. But unfortunately, this is the way of the world. My 6-year-old knows how to use the internet better than I do.
Nikki, I agree that I think it's a good idea that you have a WhatsApp group so you can check up which games, etc., your friends' children are playing. But I do believe, like you said, it's up to the parents, and the way you seem to run it in your house sounds the best solution, really. Unless you say, right, you've got half an hour, and then you have to stick to that, but give them a 10-minute warning, say, right, in 10 minutes, your half hour's up.
Yeah, and you know what? A lot of parents do actually do that. A lot of people that I know, and especially ones that have got older children that, for example, were obsessed with Fortnite. I mean, one of my friends was having major problems and didn't want it, but you had that balance because it was like, well, if he doesn't play it, he's being left out from his friends and doesn't have that thing in common. So the only way to monitor it was, he was 13. If you want to play it, you play it in the lounge where I can monitor it. And when your time's up, it's turned off. And if you abuse it, you lose it. So it's very much, I think, also down to how strict parents are with everything. It's can't just blame the children, because if children aren't given anything else to do and they don't know the boundaries, of course they're going to sit on FaceTime and play all these games because no one's monitoring it.
The thing is, my youngest grandson has discovered a game on my phone, right? And I have to watch him because when he's renewing it, right, obviously it's a challenging game about putting blocks in and things like that. But he was on the verge the other day of pressing a button that linked onto another game as well. That would have cost me some money. So it's about making sure the restrictions are on the phone. But that's for young people. We're talking about now probably adults who don't have that monitored by the family. It's about how we can actually get that message through and its impact on their lives and the family. And sadly, we all know people that have become addicted to gambling, and it's had a serious impact on their lives and their careers as well.
I think that's the problem with most things, though. Like if you're on a website, for example, a pop-up will appear and it'll say, because I had it the other day, free spins, and I'm like, but if I was thinking about it, I'd be thinking, oh, hang on, I can have a go on that, and it's not going to cost me anything. Oh, I've won £20, brilliant! I'll sign up for the next one. And it's something that can be so simple that can start that process. So it's your own personal boundaries.
We have to get the laws changed, because what you hear everywhere, at the end of it, they fulfill the law by saying, gamble responsibly. If you if you haven't got the money, stop when you can stop at anything. But if the law, they should raise the age limit to 21 or 25 or whatever it is, but it happens on these TV shows. It's all gambling. You look at everything you get, it's the promise of changing your lives. It's the same with the influencers. People stick themselves in the bedroom, buy a few pair of Nikes or whatever it is, and then influence other people. It's the reality shows. All these things lead to what other people's wannabes. I want to have a better life. I want to be able to buy designer clothes. I want to be able to do that. And the problem with that is it's social media, TV. If this is the simple, cheapest way to produce a TV program that the contestants don't get paid anything unless they win, the money comes in, the revenue comes in from the advertising, and the presenters are the ones that get paid. Cheap television at the expense of people's lives, gambling with people's lives. The law has to stop. And again, it affects the NHS and the money spent within the NHS, because psychologists, psychiatrists, and mental health people are involved. And that, again, takes the precedent. Children, take the phones off their children. They'll moan and groan, but teach them to be interactive, teach them to play chess, teach them to speak across, at dinner time or at supper time, instead of having their phones on, or people go out with friends to a restaurant, they take their phones with them. Some restaurants, thank God, are saying, put your phones in a cubbyhole when you can't enter our restaurant, because it's a good thing. But all these things are simple answers to a problem that costs nothing to be activated, but it's the will and the want of being activated. It's exactly the same as Louise said about being monitored. Wear a mask in a shop. If nobody's monitoring you, then people are not going to do it. Somebody has to be set an example, somebody has to be monitored, and it has to be shown to be done. If you're not doing that and it acts willingly, there's only one winner, and that is the gambling companies and the TV companies and everybody else who are making fortunes out of it at the expense of people's lives. And it's lives matter. It's not just black lives that matter, it's everybody's life that matters. And you have to start at a certain age and restrict it. We have to do, and people like us, and Carl highlighted this beautifully in what he said, a lot of work's gone into it. It is simple. Put pressure on the powers that be to change the law. That's a start. And if we all agree to do that and it snowballs, I mean, put it on the media and keep putting it out there, putting it out there, and putting it out there till somebody gets the message. We want the government to restrict gambling. We want the government to stop this nonsense. And as you said, during COVID, it's got worse and worse and worse because people are stuck and are looking for some way of fulfilling themselves, their lives. In school, it's great to have a phone for emergency purposes and other purposes, but I know kids that have gone into debt. I know that they've gone into prostitution, they've gone into thieving, because the people that want the money off them that can't pay back are saying, well, if you do this for us and do that for us, your debt is wiped clean. So then it's child trafficking, and it's all these other things that come from just the simple thing of spending money. And it's the wannabe. I want to be rich. I want to be this. I want to have that. And it's the money that is spent in gambling, in advertising and all this, it has to be changed in order for us to survive and the next generations to survive.
And I think more work needs to be done in schools regarding all of this, because especially with social media, and my daughter's 9, and she'll look at things and she's like, oh, mummy, they've got this, and oh, they've got that, and these ones do this. And then you sit there and adverts pop up, and they have this whole impression that this is what life's meant to be. And I actually said to my daughter the other day, I showed her a picture, and we downloaded, for example, a body editor app. And I said, oh, look what's happened to mummy. Mummy's gone half the size, and I'll up this and I'll update that. It's not reality. And trying to get young people now to understand that just what they see on the screen isn't necessarily real life. You have to get a job, you have to work, you have to do these things to earn stuff. It's not a simple fix like these people make out in social media. And I think it needs to start from an early age trying to address this, because all they do is grow up thinking, this is what my life's going to be like. And when they realise they don't get it, then that's when they're turning to other options. I mean, when I used to be a youth worker in Altrincham, every single week when the kids used to get the benefits, they used to club together and buy scratch cards in order to fund their next week and be able to go out and drink and everything else. And that's a habit that they had. And
but kids become drug runners. Kids become this. They're on their BMXs and stealing. They're put into to do burglaries because they know they get a slap on the wrist, and they're doing it for adults because they want their Nike shoes or they want their designer this or the designer that. So it's put in front of them, and you know, you see the drugs that once you know, you taste something, as Carl says, it's, you know, your adrenaline rush and this, that, and the other, and everything. It's very, very difficult, and it's a vicious circle. That circle can only be broken by pressure put on governments and companies to say, hang on a minute, you have to be responsible in your advertising, you have to be responsible within your media, you have to be responsible on your TV. We are licensed payers to the BBC, or we're licensed payers to whatever it is. You rely on us for your income. Please be responsible, and it has to be done as a legal obligation. It's the only way.
Sorry, can I ask a question?
Just bear with me, the door.
Sorry, we're talking about it all. And do you think then that there should be a set program put into schools as part of it? And what age do you think it should start with children now, knowing that they have got access to the internet, which the World Wide Web? What age do you think we should start this educating of young people?
From primary, Susan, from primary, because it's the primary are the ones, the 6 and 7 year olds are the ones that work a computer and iPhones and all these things better than I can. And if you have a problem, go to your grandchildren because they'll sort it out. You know,
I think it has to be age appropriate. I mean, I was going to say, I mean, you can start it at 6, but I think it has to be age appropriate. And children a lot of children, or most children, seem to mature much more quickly than, say, in our age. I mean,
physically,
we live
but not
in
mentally.
a very different world. And I'm glad in a way that I grew up when I did. And I think a lot is up to parental activities as well, and like the way parents are bringing up the children. If you take your kids out into the countryside and get them climbing some hills, I mean, and do this on a regular basis, you know, I think the outdoors is, I mean, as a family, I know I was taken into the countryside, and I belong to a rambling group. Not that I've been that much lately, but basically, I think parents need to be introducing other activities to their children as well.
But there are laws which, the unfortunate things that you find in schools, if a child needs to be cuddled or a child needs help.
I can't hear you very well. Wait. Oh.
If a child needs a physical hug or needs to be helped, you're not allowed to do it. But these are the basics that we were brought up in, and it did us more good than it did harm. So under circumstances, teachers are frightened to interact, that it might be construed as a sexual act or something like that. But there are times when a shoulder to cry on, an arm round your shoulder. It happens with footballers. It happens in every aspect of life. Somebody needs to put their arm around somebody and say, hang on a minute, we're here to help you. But if you don't have this physical contact, then and this distancing, that has caused so many problems, because I'm not allowed to do this, I'm not allowed to do that, I'm not allowed to do that, which then makes people vulnerable. And you've got to watch the law, and the law can be an ass, and it really can be, because, you know, there are causes and circumstances when blow the law, blow being sued, do what you feel is right from your heart. And that's the way I've always acted, and it's never seen me wrong.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I do apologise. I've got another meeting at 12:30, and I think I need to have a drink or something to eat before I go on. You too as well, Alex. Okay then. Thank you, Carl, for being Louise, I will see you tomorrow morning.
I'm only sorry I couldn't get the slides for you to all to watch. Anyway.
No, we saw some. Jay put some up, and they were okay.
There was
and
a lot more
we
than
got
that.
the message.
Yes.
And what you said was so poignant and so correct. And
That
thank
is-
you for enlightening us and
Indeed,
putting into
indeed.
perspective
Yes,
what
thank you
what
very
it's all
much, Carl,
about.
for that.
Louise,
And
Louise, I'll see you tomorrow.
before we
Susan,
go,
yeah,
before we
I'll see you
go, I will
tomorrow.
ask before we go, I will ask Nikki Davis, our CEO, to just give some concluding remarks and tell us what the next steps are for the training and especially the online training that we have with the Royal Society of Public Health. Over to you, Nikki.
Okay, so thanks, Carl, for all the information. It was really informative. So just to give you a background about the sort of things that we've been doing, obviously, as Jay just said, me and Jay, and I don't know if anyone else has, we participated in a training course regarding assessing people and to see whereabouts they would be in regards to offering support, which is obviously what we intend to do. So what we're hoping is we've designed some posters and leaflets to advertise across the community asking for volunteers, but also ones to explain to people in the very short bullet points, like you said, do you have this as a problem? Do you do this? Just to try and get people's awareness to think, actually, yeah, I do have those issues. I need some help, and they can contact us. So they're currently with the printers, and then we shall be sharing them. And then we need to obviously engage with some volunteers who will participate in training with us regarding how they're going to go about offering people support, and to make it very clear to them that they're not going to be the people that are going to be offering counselling or anything like that. The whole point of their role is to go out into the community, to meet with these people,
Correct.
chat with somebody, to get them to understand, what's going on in their life. And then through the training, I've designed an assessment toolkit with a severity index, so they can ask basic questions and it gives a score at the end. And somebody can come back to us at the JCFT and say, this is their score. If it's very low, what the options are, e.g. refers to websites, refer to information, and to let them know if things change, we're always here to help. But obviously, if they come up with a very high score on the severity index, with their consent, we will pass their information on to the relevant agencies who can offer them the actual support that they need. So we're more being the middle people, as I kind of like, is that right, Joe? Kind of the middle people, that we're there to help, but we're not there to actually.
Yeah, exactly. It's not for you to take this as long as you understand the need.
Exactly. And I think that's what's going to be very important. Yeah, exactly. And that's something we're going to be stressing very much for the volunteers. So we've also created a volunteer pack, which just needs to be finished. It's got obviously various forms for confidentiality.
Can I have a look at one of them when you've finished it, please, Nick?
Of course you can, yeah. It's going to have all the policies in there. So obviously the policies we have about working with vulnerable adults regarding confidentiality. But we're also going to have the commitment where we obviously have to sign to say, we're going to support them and what we're going to offer, but also for them to agree that they're happy for their information to be shared, that they need to be booked, to also make them very aware that this isn't a quick fix. And if they're not ready to participate, that's absolutely fine. And when they do feel that they're ready to participate in some form of support, we are here for them. And if we're offering them support and for whatever reason it goes wrong, which obviously happens with addiction, people go 10 steps forward and then something happens and they go back, we're still here to signpost them in the future. So it's just letting people know that we're here, we're going to be pointing you in the right direction, and we'll do the best that we can, but we're not here to actually counsel people. So that's kind of what we've been working on at the moment in the background, if that makes sense.
Makes sense. Fabulous. Thank you, Nikki. Absolutely. Thank you, Jay and Carl and everyone for enlightening me that this is part and parcel of something that I would like to get involved with, how much time I have, but if a little bit helps and it stops people gambling, losing money, losing their families, then everything is absolutely worth it.
Yeah, exactly. And if we can help, even if we help one person, that's one person that's had support that wouldn't have had it beforehand.
Absolutely.
That's where we have to see it. And also sharing the information that some people might not want to come forward and actually ask for help. They might feel embarrassed about it. But if we're constantly advertising services and information, at some point somebody might think, hang on, you know what, maybe these people can help me or point me in the right direction. And sometimes that's just what someone needs, to be able to talk and say, I need help, what do I do? And we're not
can we sort of have a public meeting where we get a professional like Carl or someone like that to speak to the public and say and have a Q&A afterwards, like we've done amongst ourselves, but then take it.
Yes, Alex, that's a good point. Our next event, we're looking to bring in someone who's not only an expert on the subjects, but they've experienced this themselves.
Yeah.
So that, you know, they have the lived experience, and they will talk to us from that viewpoint, and we will arrange that. It will be again like today. It will be a public event for the community angels, but also for the whole community to benefit from that. And there will be a Q&A to ask them specifically, because as we said, we are concerned not only about adults and vulnerable people in our community, but more importantly about the children who, you know, when we extend it to the whole area of online addiction and what goes on when we're not around is very much salient to what we want to do.
Yeah, and I think it's quite important to I think it's quite important as well, because I mean, I don't know if Colin will agree with me, but this is my experience with more so young people, that sometimes people, obviously, they don't realise that they necessarily have an addiction, and family members or wives or brothers or whoever might see these people and know something's going on. That person might not come forward, and this is obviously from my own experience, that sometimes people don't want to come forward and say, I've got a problem. But if their families understand what options are available out there, then it kind of offers that extra support to them to know that they're not alone dealing with this within their family.
Just say something to you, Nikki. I think today's been very interesting, and I think Alex has also touched on it in a very in his own way, and I think there's a very, very important point in all of this that's coming, and I've only just realised it from what we've discussed, but one of the courses, one of my degrees was counselling. I believe that the next big issue in society is what you've said with the children.
It's massive.
And I think that is where it is heading. You know, the gambling, without getting into what Alex said and going over it again, which was very, very good points. That's why they're all offshore, these companies, because they know legislation and they can duck and dive and smear and whatever it needs to carry on doing the business. But the big key, and it's perhaps something that Jay needs to give some thought to as a division of what you do, is to actually have assistance, be able to offer not referral but professional assistance to the community, because that is the next 2 years. I believe it's going to be dozens and dozens of children with this addiction. I've seen it myself with my own grandkids.
Carl, you're right. But let's say, for example, then if we could get a pop star or a film star or somebody who's been through this either with their family as a face for us, like others do, then there is a possibility that kids will be influenced and listen to somebody that what they think was their hero, but is not necessarily thing, or that they are having problems with their own children with the same situation.
Alex, I think it's a very good idea, but I think
that is a good idea.
We need to get to the parents first. I think I think
Yes.
But
we
it's
do.
a chicken and egg, Carl.
We
It
need
I-
both.
really
We
is.
need both. We need to get to the
And can I
parents,
just
but
also
we
say-
also need a public figure, as Alex has said, because people will follow the lead of someone who's either famous or someone who's in the public eye, leading by example.
And
Yeah,
if
no.
it means making somebody a patron or the first patron and do it that way,
Yeah.
like
Yes.
Prince Charles led in his thing with eco and stuff, and Princess Anne did with that one, and a pop star did with something to do with
Yeah.
Black Lives Matter, or the footballer did with making things aware with school meals and one
But
thing
I
and
think
another.
it even needs to start early, like even before that stage, because like we mentioned before about like the night trainers, everything seems to be, especially with young people. And I heard it the other day, we had kids here, now 8, 9 years old, talking about diets because they're fat. And I had to join in the conversation. But because they're seeing, again, social media, you should look like this, you should do that, you want to achieve. That's where gambling will end up if we don't address the issues of body image, self-esteem, all these basic things early on in life, because if they feel they're not good enough, they're going to want to do whatever they can to feel like they're meant to be good enough, instead of actually accepting the fact that they're great as they
But
are.
it is their
But
friends,
Nicky, if we
they're
don't-
bullied. They're
But
bullied
if we
because they're
don't-
not allowed, they don't feel part of a crowd or a group
Yeah,
unless they're a size 8 or a size 10 or whatever it
Exactly.
might be.
I don't think parents are made aware enough of the danger
no.
of when they're allowing their kids to play Fortnite and all the other games that they now play, and where that is leading in their lives. And I
But
think
they
this
are,
is so-
Carl. Some of them are, because they spend their life in the pub or in the betting shop or wherever it might be, or doing things that they shouldn't be doing, and they have no time for their children. They have time, but it's
Well, that's a
spent.
different matter.
You know, how
Alex.
many children from the inner cities are left to fend for themselves when they come back from school because mum and dad or is
Working? Well,
what's name
society's
or
pressures these days, they do expect it.
But
Anyway, it's a
indeed-
thought. It is a thought for the future. Anyway,
Yes, indeed. I mean, we could talk about the subjects all day.
Correct.
We've just started something. I'm sure, and we will come back to it. We will have more of these meetings because they are needed. You know, we've started something now, and as I say to people, this is the same stage where we were 20 years ago with regards to mental health. People didn't want to talk about it, but now everyone talks about it. The same thing with gambling. Hopefully it will not take 20 years, but we will get there so that we can start addressing the issue. Thank you, all of you, for being here, and especially you, Carl. Thank you for the wonderful explanation that you gave us, and we will meet again. Thank you for being here. Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
bye. Thank you all.
Bye, thanks.
Bye.
Take care. Have a great
Bye.
week.
You too, Alex.